Welcome back. September 11th, 2001. Many of us remember every moment of that day. I sure do. Some of us weren't around to remember it. Nearly 3,000 people died when the World Trade Center in New York was attacked and the Twin Towers shockingly came down. Today, President Trump reflected on the 24th anniversary of that fateful day.
24 years have passed since that Tuesday morning in September, and an entire generation of Americans have come of age in a totally different world. While they cannot remember the agony of that day, they are carrying on the legacy of those who lost.
And joining us now is veteran Chicago journalist Marin, who worked for CBS News in New York at the time and was at Ground Zero on 9/11. Carol, of course, is the senior faculty fellow at DePaul University Center for Journalism, Integrity, and Excellence. Carol, it's wonderful to talk to you, and I know that you've recounted this story many times, but for our viewers, can you inform them of where you were when that first plane hit and blow by blow what you experienced subsequently?
So, Paris, 24 years ago, I was in the offices of 60 Minutes at CBS News because I was there early in the morning for a screening of one of our stories. When, there were TV monitors all around, we saw on the monitor the hit of the first building, and we jumped to the monitors and thought, "What is that, a Cessna? What is that?" Well, it wasn't a Cessna, as we now know, and I knew enough about reporting to know I had to get to the scene, because the sooner you get to the scene, the sooner you get closer, because police lines close it up fast. And so I raced down to what we now know was Ground Zero. And I got out and was walking, huge crowds of people were walking away from the building, and I was walking towards it. And, it's sort of this funny idea that, I'm in the news. I'm somehow not going to be hit by this. I've got something to cover. And so I went on, and as I'm going on, the second tower melted in front of me and crashed. By that time, I had gotten on to West Street. And before that crash, I was walking, looking for people to talk to, when the ground sort of shook and a firefighter screamed, "Run!" And I turned and ran as the second tower started coming down. And he picked me up by the waist, threw me on my feet, took me to the overhang of another big office building, and covered me with his body, to the point where I could, and I've said this many times, feel the beating of his heart against my backbone. And by that time, the second tower was down, and we were in a black, completely unseeable cloud of cinders and smoke and parts of people who had been blown up in that building.
Obviously, a
The
traumatic...
firefighter took my, I know, it seems impossible. It seems impossible that I survived, and I'm very grateful I did. But that firefighter, whose name I never got, and it drives me crazy to this point, handed me to a police officer. And the police officer, whose name was Brendan Duke, held my hand. We covered our faces with our hands, and he walked me through the cinders and the smoke until we began to see a clearing in the light, and then began to see other teams of firefighters, one of whom put an oxygen mask on my face so I could breathe better. And then I proceeded down to find any vehicle I could to hitch a ride. It turned out it was a disabled New York City bus that had a flat tire but could roll. Took me to the broadcast center, where I walked in, covered in dust and debris, and sat down next to Dan Rather and reported the story that I had seen.
And I actually remember, Carol, I was in college, I was watching CBS. I remember Dan Rather holding your hand. I remember you being rattled. I remember the dust in your hair. And it's a traumatic thing to go through, but but not for that first responder, you might not have made it out of there. And I know that for years you wanted to find him and thank him. And a few years ago, I think NBC5 had reunited the two of you. What was that like, and what is the connection that you two share, given what happened that day?
Well, the firefighter who threw me against the building, I've not found. Brendan Duke, the police officer to whom he handed me, I began talking to. I had found him prior to the NBC story, but we never met up face to face until that moment. You know, we talk to each other every 9/11. The first, or among the first things we say is, how are you? How are your lungs? How's your breathing? We both tell each other the same thing, that our breathing has been affected a little bit, but not massively. I am well, he is well. And so we mark the day, but the other thing we say is, for this generation of, for instance, the students that we teach, 9/11 is as distant from them as World War II was for me. My parents lived through it. I did not. Our students have not lived through 9/11, but we have. And so it's telling them kind of a story without the power of feeling it happen at the time. And so we remember it, but the other part that Brendan and I agree on is we don't define ourselves by 9/11. We carry it with us, but not every day, every minute. And so you push on, you move on, you do what you need to do.
And that was going to be my next question, because you are teaching young students. What is their experience of 9/11, having only perhaps read about it in the history books? Because I find this all the time with younger staff members. It kind of throws me for a loop when someone doesn't recall exactly where they were and blow by blow exactly what happened.
No, it's true. And so it isn't a defining national moment for them. It is for us. And so we talk about it. Many of them have seen the video on YouTube of me with Dan Rather. I get all sorts of emails every 9/11 of people who, you know, are trolling through the internet and come across it and want to talk about it. And they find it impactful, but only to a degree, because it didn't happen to them. It's the story of history. You teach history and you try to make it alive, but there's always going to be a little distance from the people who lived it and the people who are being told about it.
All right, and I think there's a certain history to the era we're living in right now, Carol, that we might be talking about in 20 years the same kind of way. Carol Marin from the DePaul University Center for Journalism, Integrity, and Excellence, thank you so much for recounting your memories with us.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Paris. Take care.
You as well. And still ahead, a Chicago alderman wants to challenge Toni Preckwinkle for her seat at Cook County Board. We'll hear from him next.